Have you ever wondered why the most mysterious women seem to haunt the memory of men long after their presence has faded? Why her silence lingers louder than another woman's voice, and why her absence burns more than her presence ever could? This is not coincidence. It is not simple allure or physical beauty. It is a truth that Carl Jung, with his understanding of the unconscious, shadow, and anima, whispered beneath the surface of his work. The mysterious woman stirs something primal, something archetypal, that no man can easily escape. For Jung, the feminine was never only about gender, it was about energy, the living embodiment of the anima, the soul image that dwells inside every man. The mysterious woman awakens this figure within him, forcing him into confrontation with his own hidden depths. She is less a person to him and more a mirror, reflecting back the part of his psyche he has not yet claimed. And when a man encounters such a woman, it is not her body he longs for most, but the strange, unsettling invitation into his own soul. The man may not even understand why he feels so drawn, why he feels restless, consumed, even tormented. But you know this. When you embody mystery, you shift the dynamic entirely. You cease being a figure he can categorize, control, or conquer. You become something he cannot hold, and therefore something he cannot stop pursuing. The paradox of the feminine mystery is that the less you offer, the more he feels compelled to search. The more you detach, the deeper his obsession grows. This is not a game of manipulation. It is a psychological reality as old as myth itself. Think of the woman who does not rush to answer every message, who does not crumble when abandoned, who does not explain herself in desperation. She moves like water, slipping through grasping fingers, leaving only the echo of her essence. To such a man, she is Persephone. Nay, descending into the underworld, Aphrodite rising from the sea, the veiled priestess who guards the temple. She embodies the feminine archetype that cannot be consumed or possessed. This is what Jung meant when he spoke of projection. The man sees in her what he cannot face in himself. He imagines her as salvation, temptation, or even danger, when in truth she is simply holding her ground, embodying her own self-worth. And yet because he cannot separate his inner shadow from her image, he binds himself to her in fascination. The mysterious woman, by doing less, by speaking less, by revealing less, does infinitely more to the unconscious mind of a man. But here lies the tension. Men often fear what they cannot control, and so the mysterious woman, while captivating, also terrifies. She awakens his longing, but also his insecurity. She forces him to confront the silence he has buried within himself, the loneliness he refuses to acknowledge, the desires he has never dared to confess. Her presence pulls him inward, into his own shadow. He may resent her, resist her, even rage against her distance, but still, he cannot let her go. And here is the truth you must understand. The mysterious woman does not win his soul by chasing, pleading, or proving. She wins because she understands the timeless law of attraction. What is scarce is sacred. What is hidden is holy. And what cannot be easily understood becomes unforgettable. When you embody this energy, you ignite his instinct not to consume, but to quest. Consider how silence unsettles a man. When you withhold explanation, he fills the void with his own imagination. When you step back, he wonders if he ever had you at all. When you cease to justify, he projects meaning into every glance, every pause, every unanswered word. The silence of a mysterious woman is never empty. It is charged with the weight of all he cannot decode. And it is here, in that silence, that you hold the greatest power. Carl Jung often reminded us that what we cannot see in ourselves, we chase endlessly in another. That is why the mysterious woman always wins, not because she is flawless, but because she does not make herself fully knowable. She allows the man to wrestle with himself, to see in her what he has lost, denied, or disowned. She is not just a lover, but a mirror, a portal into the unconscious, and that makes her unforgettable. But mystery is not merely silence or detachment. It is not coldness for its own sake. It is a spiritual posture, a refusal to betray your essence for the sake of fleeting validation. It is the courage to stand in your feminine power without needing to overexpose or over-explain. It is the grace of knowing that your worth does not shrink because another fails to recognize it. And so the mysterious woman does not seek approval, nor does she beg for attention. She knows her allure is not in what she gives away, but in what she protects. Her mystery is a sanctuary, and any man who dares to enter will be changed. Not because she hands him her soul, but because she forces him to confront his own. The mysterious woman unsettles the foundation of a man's ego, and this is why she holds such profound sway over his psyche. Every man carries within him an architecture of control, a silent fortress built to guard against vulnerability. His pride, his conquests, his accomplishments, all of these are bricks layered to protect him through. On the truth that lies beneath, the fear of insignificance, the terror of being unseen. Yet when he encounters a woman who cannot be conquered, whose presence is felt but not possessed, his fortress begins to crack. She does not storm his walls with force. She does not plead at his gates. She simply refuses to be absorbed into his structure. She stands apart, and that apartness awakens something deep inside him. It calls to his anima, to the inner feminine he has long neglected. Jung would say that she is the projection of his unlived life, the soul he has exiled to shadow. To meet her is to meet himself, though he cannot name it. That is why she appears both holy and dangerous, both desirable and unbearable. When a woman embraces this archetype of mystery, she steps into an ancient dance. She becomes less a participant in the man's game and more the mirror of his inner struggle. And you, listening now, must recognize the significance of this. Mystery is not an act you perform. It is a state of being rooted in detachment, sovereignty, and depth. You do not need to fabricate a law. You need only to stop betraying your essence for the sake of being chosen. Men instinctively chase what they cannot fully understand. A clear, predictable pattern satisfies the ego, but an unpredictable silence awakens the soul. He may not even consciously desire a relationship with such a woman. Often he tells himself she is too much, too distant, too complicated. Yet still, she lingers in his mind. He dreams of her long after he has convinced himself he has moved on. He sees her shadow in other faces, hears her voice in other silences. This is the fate of the man who encounters mystery. He carries it with him, even in absence. The Stoics taught that what we do not control, we must learn to accept. Marcus Aurelius wrote of the discipline of letting go, of refusing to cling to illusions of power. Yet most men fail to embody this wisdom when it comes to women. They imagine they can win her, tame her, own her. But the mysterious woman resists this delusion. She reminds him, often painfully, that not everything is meant to be grasped. And that lesson is as spiritual as it is emotional. This is why she wins his soul, because she takes him to the threshold of surrender. Not surrender to her, but surrender to his own vulnerability. She forces him into confrontation with his desires, his fears, his regrets. He may rage, he may retreat, he may even attempt to replace her with another. Yet the imprint of her remains, and what remains is not her physical presence, but the transformation she stirred within him. Now understand this clearly. Being mysterious is not about playing games, but about cultivating a depth that cannot be consumed in a single glance. It is about knowing your silence carries weight, that your absence speaks volumes. It is about trusting that not every truth must be revealed, not every wound must be displayed, not every thought must be spoken. Your restraint is not emptiness, it is the richness of untold layers, and those layers are what make you unforgettable. Consider the woman who reveals everything at once. She is like a book with all its pages open, easily read, quickly forgotten. But the mysterious woman is like a sacred text written in symbols, requiring patience, reverence, and attention. Each glimpse offers something new, yet the whole can never be consumed. She is not merely known, she is experienced. And in that experience, a man finds himself both lost and found. It is here that Jung's shadow comes alive. For what a man cannot reconcile in himself, he will seek endlessly in another. And so, when you embody mystery, you become both his desire and his trial. You pull him into a confrontation with his hidden self. That is why he feels both drawn and undone. He wants you, but more deeply, he wants the wholeness you awaken in him. This is the paradox he cannot escape. He chases the woman, but what he truly seeks is his own soul. And because you, in your mystery, ignite this unconscious fire, you will never be easily forgotten. The mysterious woman teaches without words, and her lessons strike deeper than any lecture or argument. Her silence, her restraint, her refusal to cling, these qualities shape the man's psyche more than pleading ever could. In her distance, he is forced to reflect. In her absence, he hears the echo of his own emptiness. She awakens him not by telling him who he is, but by showing him what he is not. Carl Jung spoke often of individuation, the lifelong process of integrating the unconscious into the conscious, of becoming whole. Yet few men willingly walk this path until they are confronted with loss, with silence, with the unsettling presence of someone they cannot dominate. The mysterious woman becomes, whether she intends it or not, a catalyst for individuation. She holds up a mirror, and in that reflection he sees the fractures he has long denied. His ego resists, but his soul stirs. Think of how he reacts when you no longer over-explain yourself. He searches your face for clues. He rereads the last words you gave him. He plays back memories like riddles to be solved. And why? Because the mystery forces him inward. He cannot simply consume you like a surface-level distraction. He must wrestle with the deeper meaning. What does her silence mean? Why can't I stop thinking of her? Why does her absence feel heavier than her presence? These questions unravel him, but they also grow him. The Stoic philosophers knew that desire is often a teacher cloaked in torment. Epictetus warned that we suffer not from events themselves, but from the stories we tell ourselves about them. And when a man encounters a woman who resists his story, who refuses to be cast in the role he has written, he suffers. He imagines betrayal, he invents motives, he projects his fears onto her. Yet all of this turmoil is not about her, it is about the war within himself. She is simply the mirror. This is the dangerous power of feminine mystery. It collapses his illusion of control. He cannot predict her, cannot place her in neat categories, cannot decide when or how she will appear. And so, instead of chasing her body, he chases clarity. He longs not just for her presence, but for understanding. He wants to solve her, yet every attempt slips through his grasp. This unsolved riddle is what keeps her alive in his imagination, sometimes for years, sometimes for life. And here lies the lesson for you. Mystery is not cruelty. It is not withholding love or kindness. It is not manipulation. True mystery is the discipline of self-possession. It is the refusal to give every piece of yourself to someone who has not earned it. It is the art of pacing revelation, of allowing discovery to unfold slowly, of never betraying your own depth for the sake of instant validation. Modern psychology affirms what the ancients already knew. The human mind attaches most fiercely to what it cannot fully obtain. Scarcity sharpens desire. Ambiguity intensifies longing. What is uncertain, what is veiled, what is rare, these are the things that the psyche cannot release. The mysterious woman embodies this effortlessly, not because she tries to, but because she knows her worth and therefore does not scatter it carelessly. Imagine the man who once believed he had control. He was used to women who chased him, who explained their emotions in painstaking detail, who made themselves predictable out of fear of losing him. Then he meets the one who does not play by this script. She does not beg, she does not argue, she does not perform. She exists in her own rhythm, guided not by his approval, but by her own inner compass. He resists at first, even mocks her detachment, but secretly he is consumed by it. The very thing that unsettles him becomes the thing he cannot resist. Over time, he may try to diminish her. He may tell others she was cold, distant, or strange, but this is only defense, only ego shielding itself from the truth, that he was moved by her more than he dares admit. For while he may replace her body, he cannot erase her presence. She remains in his memory, not as a lover who gave him everything, but as a vision he could never quite possess. And that vision, precisely because it was incomplete, is eternal. This is why the mysterious woman always wins his soul. She is not the loudest, not the most available, not the one who explains herself endlessly. She is the one who left space for his imagination, who left silence for his reflection, who carried herself like something sacred. She is the woman who reminded him of his own depths, even as he feared them. And when you embody this truth, you stop chasing validation. You stop bending yourself to fit into a man's narrative. You realize that your mystery is not a flaw, but a gift, a sacred power that awakens the unconscious and forces the soul to move. The mysterious woman becomes an initiation, a threshold that a man crosses often without realizing it. She is less a person to him than a symbol, a vessel through which his own unconscious demands recognition. This is why her presence lingers long after her physical absence. She lives not in his daily reality, but in his dreams, in his fantasies, in the restless ache of his unanswered questions. Jung understood this profoundly. The anima, the inner feminine, is projected outward until a man learns to integrate it. Every time he falls for a woman he cannot possess, every time he obsesses over the one who got away, it is not merely her image he is chasing, it is his own fragmented soul. The mysterious woman awakens the longing for wholeness, and that is why she wins not just his desire, but his very spirit. Think of the man who encounters a woman who is fully available, who reveals herself quickly, who tries to be everything he wants. He may enjoy her attention, but soon he grows complacent. There is no tension, no mystery, no veil of the unknown to stir his imagination. Yet with the mysterious woman, even the smallest gestures carry weight. A half smile, a delayed reply, the way she turns away when others would rush closer. These moments ignite a fire in him, not because of what she gives, but because of what she withholds. It is here that the Stoics and Jung intersect. Seneca wrote that desire is never satisfied by possession, only inflamed by longing. To possess is to kill the very mystery that made the thing desirable. And Jung would say that this longing, this unfulfilled desire, is the unconscious demanding growth. Thus, the mysterious woman is not simply attractive, she is transformative. She does not give him what he wants, she gives him what his soul needs, the confrontation with lack, with longing, with shadow. And you, listening, must see the power in this. Mist. Eerie is not weakness, nor is it manipulation. Mystery is the essence of sacred boundaries. It is the refusal to collapse into overexposure. It is knowing that your worth is not in how much you reveal, but in how much you protect. Your depth is not meant for every passing glance. Your silence is not emptiness, but a test, a filter, a sanctuary. When a woman embodies this, she does not ask, will he stay? She does not fear, what if he leaves? Instead, she understands the truth. If he cannot remain in the presence of mystery, if he cannot withstand the silence, then he was never ready to meet her at all. And that discernment, that detachment is what frees her. But to the man, it is torment. He is torn between his ego, which demands control, and his soul, which longs for surrender. He vacillates between resentment and desire, between wanting to escape her and wanting to consume her entirely. And still, she does not bend, she does not rush to soothe his discomfort. She holds the silence like a priestess guarding sacred fire, knowing that only those worthy of the flame will have the patience to endure its heat. It is no coincidence that throughout history, the most captivating female figures were veiled in mystery. Cleopatra, whose power lay not only in her beauty, but in her refusal to be predictable. The muses of poets, who gave just enough to inspire but never enough to be owned. The femme fatale, feared and desired alike, who destabilized men not through seduction alone, but through the enigma of her presence. Each of these archetypes embodies what Jung called the numinous, the sense of encountering something larger than life, something spiritual, even divine. And this is why he never forgets her. Not because she gave him everything, but because she withheld what he thought he was entitled to. Not because she filled every silence with reassurance, but because she allowed silence to stretch until it became unbearable. Not because she conformed to his narrative, but because she shattered it. In her mystery, he was forced to confront himself, and that confrontation, though painful, left a permanent imprint on his soul. You must remember, to be mysterious is not to hide from love, but to honor yourself as something sacred. It is to understand that unveiling is a process, not a performance, that your worth does not depend on how quickly you are consumed, but on how deeply you are experienced. The mysterious woman is not closed off, she is simply whole within herself. She does not beg for validation because she already possesses the source of her own value. This is why she always wins, not in the shallow sense of conquest, but in the eternal sense of memory, transformation, and soul-binding impact. For long after the noise of superficial encounters has faded, long after the women who gave everything have been forgotten, she remains. She lives in the unconscious of the man she touched, haunting him, teaching him, guiding him, whether he admits it or not. And in that haunting, she proves a timeless truth. The woman who protects her mystery protects her power. There comes a moment when the mysterious woman ceases to be merely a figure in a man's life and becomes a myth in his memory. She is elevated, often against her will, into something greater than herself in his imagination, not because she sought such a position, but because she resisted being reduced. And this resistance, this refusal to collapse into the shallow patterns of pursuit and validation, forces him to create a story around her. She becomes the one who slipped away, the what if that lingers, the unanswered question that keeps him awake at night. This is the essence of archetypal power. Jung knew that myths are not invented but lived, that the human psyche takes ordinary people and weaves them into symbols. And so the mysterious woman, by remaining whole within herself, becomes more than flesh and bone to him. She becomes symbol, dream, obsession, guide, tormentor. He cannot separate her from his own unconscious, because in truth she now resides there. Yet you must understand, her power is not in the torment she causes, but in the mirror she provides. A man drawn into mystery is a man drawn into himself. What he sees in her is what he has yet to embrace in his own depths. Her distance awakens his yearning, but that yearning is for the neglected part of his own soul. She becomes a projection of all he denies, his vulnerability, his longing for wholeness, his fear of being powerless. In her silence, he hears the voice of his own anima calling him home. Consider the difference between the woman who gives herself away to avoid loss and the woman who embodies her mystery without apology. The first may win temporary attention, but it fades as quickly as it came. The second plants herself in his psyche like a seed. Even if he resists her, even if he claims indifference, even if he runs to another, still she grows in him. and in quiet moments when the noise of his distractions subsides, she returns. The memory of her presence stirs, not as a fleeting desire, but as a haunting truth he cannot shake. This is why absence becomes her greatest ally. Modern psychology reveals that the brain clings more tightly to unfinished stories than to resolved ones. Closure ends longing, ambiguity sustains it. And so the mysterious woman, by leaving things unsaid, by refusing to resolve every tension, by holding back her full unveiling, ensures that she is remembered not for what she gave, but for what she withheld. The unfinished becomes eternal. The Stoics would call this detachment, the strength to remain unshaken by another's reactions. Marcus Aurelius urged, "Be like the rock against which the waves break." The mysterious woman embodies this rock-like steadiness. She does not collapse under his moods, his demands, his attempts at control. She allows the waves of his emotions to crash, but she remains rooted. And because she does not bend, he learns painfully that her value does not depend on his approval. This revelation, more than anything, wounds his ego and awakens his soul. But let us be clear, her mystery is not cruelty, nor is it coldness. It is devotion to her essence. It is the understanding that the feminine is not meant to be fully explained, that beauty lies in the unseen, the veiled, the hinted. She is not withholding to punish, she is withholding to protect. She knows her worth, and in that knowing, she refuses to scatter her soul to those who would not honor it. And what of the man who cannot endure this mystery? He may leave, frustrated, angry, convinced she was too difficult. But his departure is not her loss, it is his. For he walks away unchanged, uninitiated, still chained to the illusions of control. He may seek easier conquests, but none will carry the depth of the one he abandoned. In time, he will realize that what he fled was not her mystery, but his own fear of himself. Meanwhile, the woman who embraces her mystery remains unshaken. She does not shrink to keep him comfortable. She does not rush to close the gap his insecurity creates. She stands as she is, sovereign, whole, and veiled. And this is her victory, not that she manipulates, but that she refuses to betray herself for anyone's comfort. Jung reminded us that the soul speaks in symbols, and the mysterious woman becomes one such symbol. She is remembered not for her compliance, but for her depth, not for her availability, but for her restraint, not for what she gave freely, but for what she guarded. And it is this restraint, this protective silence, that binds her image to his psyche with unbreakable force. She wins, not because she demanded his soul, but because he gave it to her unknowingly, chasing in her what he longed to find in himself. There is a strange paradox at the heart of feminine mystery. The less she reveals, the more he feels exposed. The less she demands, the more he feels compelled to prove himself. She becomes a shadow against which his ego trembles, a silence that amplifies the chaos within him. And though he may outwardly resent her, inwardly he cannot resist her gravity. For in a world where most give too much too soon, her restraint feels like an abyss, terrifying, alluring, endless. Jung described this as the confrontation with the unconscious, the point where the ego, so used to control, collides with what it cannot dominate. The mysterious woman embodies this collision. She is both invitation and denial, both presence and absence. She forces the man to wrestle not with her, but with himself. He may think he is chasing her, but in truth he is chasing the shadow she awakens inside him. Imagine the weight of a silence that cannot be explained away. When you withhold your explanations, he invents his own. When you refuse to justify your detachment, he fills the void with stories of his own making. He projects, he fantasizes, he obsesses. And every story he tells himself only binds him closer, for in the gaps you leave behind, he pours his own longing. This is the secret he will never admit, that his obsession with you is not about you at all, but about what you reflect back to him, the unclaimed pieces of his own soul. The Stoics would have understood this torment well. Epictetus taught that suffering arises not from what happens to us, but from our judgments about it. And so it is with the man entangled in mystery. It is not your silence that wounds him, but what he believes it means. It is not your distance that consumes him, but the story he tells himself about why you are distant. In this way, you become a teacher without speaking a word, forcing him into the discipline of self-confrontation. Yet mystery is not only about absence, it is also about presence, an energy that cannot be imitated. The mysterious woman carries herself with a gravity that says, "I am whole, with or without you." She does not chase, she does not plead, she does not bend herself into shapes to be chosen. She chooses herself, and in doing so she becomes irresistible. For nothing unsettles the male psyche more than a woman who does not need him, yet remains desirable all the same. It is here that attraction becomes dangerous. To be wanted is one thing, to be needed is another. But to be desired by someone who does not need you, that is the deepest intoxication. It dismantles the ego, for the man realizes he cannot secure her through power, provision, or control. She is not waiting to be completed, she is already complete. His conquest has no foothold, and so his longing only deepens. Over time, she becomes the measure against which he compares others. The women who explain too much, who give too much, who remain predictable, none of them move him the way she did. They cannot, because they do not embody the same paradox of intimacy and distance, allure and restraint. He may not even realize it, but he begins to look for fragments of her in every face he meets, and yet fragments are all he will ever find. For the whole of her mystery was singular, unrepeatable. This is the eternal wound she leaves behind, the recognition that not every woman can be possessed and not every story will be finished. And though his ego resists this truth, his soul is nourished by it. For it is precisely in the unfinished, the unclaimed, the unknowable, that the psyche grows. She forces him into individuation not by staying, but by leaving, not by giving, but by withholding, not by being consumed, but by remaining untouchable. And what of her? She does not sit in mourning, nor does she linger in regret. Her power lies not in how he remembers her, but in how she remembers herself. She does not build her worth on his obsession, for she knows that to do so would be to betray her essence. She remains steady, sovereign, unbroken. The mysterious woman does not win by taking his soul, she wins by never surrendering her own. This is the final truth. Mystery is freedom. Freedom from the need to explain, freedom from the compulsion to be chosen, freedom from the illusion that worth is proven by attention. In embracing her mystery, she embraces her wholeness, and from this wholeness she draws a power that cannot be stolen. The man may search for her forever, but she is no longer concerned with whether he finds her. For the woman who embodies her own depth knows that she was never chasing him, she was always awakening herself. The woman who knows her worth doesn't chase, she chose.